PowerPoint presentation.
Okay, yes, sure. You can.
Are you all able to see my screen?
Not
Is
yet.
the screen visible to everybody?
Not yet.
Not yet, not yet.
Okay, just
try.
Okay. Is it visible now?
Yes.
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 Okay. Okay, so today, like I said, we'll be looking at deforestation. We want people to know what deforestation is, and also what afforestation is and what role afforestation has in climate change mitigation. So the contents of this presentation are basically going to take us through on what climate change is, what are the causes of climate change, what is deforestation, what are the causes and effects of deforestation, what ways can we put in place to control deforestation, afforestation mitigation measures by the Zambian government. I'm sorry, that point was supposed to read deforestation mitigation measures. I'm really sorry about that. Then I'll also introduce CRESAD, what CRESAD is, and how we play a role in the Tralad project. Okay, so what is climate change? I'm sure by now everybody has some idea on what climate change is, because I believe this program has, from the day you started, you've been trying to educate one another on what climate change is, but nevertheless, I'll still take you through it. So this climate change refers to long-term shifts in temperatures, weather patterns, and this is basically attributed directly or indirectly to human activities. So these activities tend to alter the composition of the global atmosphere. So this climate change can be seen from the shift in weather patterns. These shifts in weather patterns have threatened the food production. They've led to the rise in sea levels. Then they've brought about the impacts of climate change. Then what is causing this climate change? I'm sure we're all aware by now. So human activities such as industrialization. So this industrialization leads to deforestation. And there's also been the warmer atmosphere resulting in changing weather and climate patterns. Then we also have the effects that have attributed to the temperature changes, the changes in the rainfall patterns, the changes in the magnitude and frequency of extreme weather events, the sea levels changing, and various associated effects, which we're going to look on. So what is deforestation? Am I audible?
I can get you.
Yes.
Okay.
I'll just ask for those whose mics are open, please close them. Please close them. Okay.
Okay, so I'm sure somebody here tonight would love to know what deforestation is. So deforestation is the removal of forests, the ground cover or stand of trees where the land is then converted into non-forest use. So this is a common practice, even in our communities. We see people going into forests and cutting down trees, and this tends to disturb the ground cover. So deforestation basically is the act of cutting down trees, even if it's not in a forest, even just in our communities, in our backyards. If you're cutting down a tree, you're practicing deforestation. So basically the act of removing of trees is known as deforestation. So what leads to deforestation? So people tend to practice deforestation because they want to venture into agricultural activities. They want to clear their lands to farm or to rear livestock. Sometimes this deforestation comes about due to urbanization. People want to build roads, they want to build buildings and stuff like that. And other than that, we have people collecting trees for wood fuel use, the famous charcoal production. Then we also have. Hello?
Yes, you can go on, madam.
Okay. Then we also have deforestation being brought about as a result of forest fires. So these forest fires are usually naturally occurring. Sometimes they're initiated by man. Then what are the effects of deforestation? So this deforestation leads to climate imbalance. Like I mentioned earlier, we have changes in the weather patterns. Then we have effects of soil erosion, where soils get carried away by either water or wind. Then we also have an increase in global warming. Then this leads to floods and droughts, storms, and the like. So these are the effects of deforestation. So what ways can we put in place to control the rate at which deforestation is taking place in our environments? So tonight, I'll address two new words. I don't know if they're new to us or maybe we've heard of them. So we're going to talk about afforestation and reforestation. So these are some of the best practices that we can put in place to curb the rate of deforestation.
Now, if you could just maybe check on the slides.
So afforestation and reforestation sound like two similar words, but they are totally different in their meanings.
Yeah, the slides seem not to be moving.
The slides are not moving?
Yeah, we are still on the first page, so we'd have to change that.
Oh, okay. Is that
Maybe
for everybody or is just? Is everybody still on the first page?
Yes,
yes, we're still on the first page.
Yes.
I'm really sorry about that. Let me try to.
Sure, we're still on the first page.
Is it better? Is it better now? Are you able to see the second page now?
Not really.
no, we can't.
No,
Maybe you can try to cancel the sharing and then share it again.
Okay, let me do that.
Yeah.
Are we able to see the second page now?
Yes, sure.
Yes.
Okay. Just a minute. Are we still able to see the second page?
Yes.
Yes, we are.
No, it's changing. It's changing.
Yes, we are able to see the second page.
Are you able to see the other page that I've changed to?
It's a zoom. Yes, it's a zoom, but it's zoomed.
Yes.
Okay, then let me end the slideshow.
But it is still okay.
Is it better now?
Yeah, it is.
Not yet. Yes. Okay, now it is.
Okay. So sorry about that.
It
so
is.
Okay, so I'll just quickly take you through the 3 slides that you have missed. So I was looking at the contents of the presentation. Then I introduced climate change and some indicators of climate change. Then we looked at the causes of climate change. Then now I was trying to explain, I introduced what deforestation was, and we said deforestation is the removal of forests or simply the cutting down of trees. Then we looked at the causes and the effects of deforestation. And now I'm at ways to control deforestation. So I was trying to introduce afforestation and reforestation. So I was saying, so these are some of the ways that we can put in place to control deforestation. So what is afforestation and reforestation? I'll start with afforestation. So afforestation is simply the establishment of a forest or a stand of trees in an area where there was no previous tree cover. So basically, afforestation is an act of creating a new forest. So where you get your seedlings, could be pine, it could be eucalyptus, whatever plant, whatever tree species that you intend to plant, and you go on a land that didn't have a forest previously, and you plant those seedlings. So that is what is referred to as afforestation. So you're basically creating a new forest because there was nothing before or previously on that piece of land. So that is afforestation. Then reforestation is the re-establishment of a forest through planting and or a deliberate seedling on land classified as a forest. So this is where you have a forest that is already existing or that's already in existence, and you get seedlings to go and plant in that already existing forest because somebody could have come and cut down a few trees from that particular forest. So for reforestation, you're basically just replanting in an already existing forest. Okay, so moving forward. So what are some of the advantages of afforestation? So afforestation helps to address all the issues of soil erosion, because when you have plants or you have trees growing in a forest, that helps to reduce the effects of soil erosion because the ground is covered. Yeah, then also trees act as wind barriers or wind breakers. Also, there's this afforestation has the potential of reversing global warming and climate change. Then afforestation also helps to purify the air by trapping soil particles in the air. Other than that, it helps to improve the watershed, thereby providing us with clean water for consumption. Okay, advantages of afforestation continued. Then it also helps in the preservation of wildlife, or in short, I could just say it helps in the preservation of the ecosystem, because we have so many living organisms that depend on these forests. We have the birds, we have worms, we have the wildlife, and all sorts of living organisms depending on these forests. So once you go into those forests and you cut them down, you're basically just cutting down the life of those living organisms depending on those forests. And this is going to affect the ecosystems. Then apart from that, afforestation also helps in provision of employment and economic opportunities. How? Because it provides raw materials for human use without harming nature. Then afforestation also helps in the constant supply of forest products. So we all know, I'm sure we all know by now some of the forest products. If you don't, I'll just quickly take you through them. So we have forest products such as honey that is naturally collected from our forests. Then we have wild fruits that are helping even people in the communities generate some money or find livelihood from that. Okay, so we can look at deforestation mitigation measures by the Zambian government. What is our government doing about deforestation? So there's what is known as strengthening management effectiveness and generating multiple environmental benefits within and around the Greater Kafue National Park and the West Lunga National Park. Then apart from that, the government is also trying to promote climate resilient communities based on regeneration of the indigenous forests in Zambia's central province. So basically the government here is trying to regenerate indigenous forests in Zambia, because we have, what is now happening is people are trying to plant exotic trees. So like I mentioned, the pine and the eucalyptus, those are exotic trees. But then the government has put in place an exercise in the central province of Zambia to regenerate our indigenous forests. And what do we mean by indigenous? We mean our local trees. We want our local trees to also be planted in our forests and never to run out. Then the Zambia Integrated Forest Landscapes Program in Zambia's Eastern Province. So the objective of this project is to improve landscape management and increase environmental and economic benefits for targeted rural communities in the Eastern Province, and also to improve the recipient's capacity to respond promptly and effectively to an eligible crisis or emergency. Then other than that, we have the Forest and Farm Facility Program. So this has been running from 2018 all the way up to, it has to run all the way up to 2022. So the program's focus is to strengthen forest and farm producer organizations as primary agents of change for climate resilient landscapes. Okay, then apart from that, we have the famous 6th national report. And then this is where Zambia has entered into a small scale funding agreement with the UNEP. And this is a project that is worth $100,000 US, and it's aimed at enabling the country to prepare its 6th national report to the Convention on Biological Diversity. So we want, the government is trying to make the country have a biological diversity. What do we mean by biological diversity? We want our ecosystem to be diverse. We don't want species to become extinct. We want species to keep running because we have some species of trees that have run out due to constant cutting down of trees. Then other than that, the government is also working on a proposal preparation grant on ecosystems based on adaptation. So here the ministry through the department has another, it's a small scale funding agreement with UNEP to enable it prepare a project proposal aimed at protecting wetlands, the forests, and that is aimed at promoting ecosystem-based adaptation to enable communities to adapt to climate change. Then finally, there's what is known as the Transforming Landscapes for Resilience and Development, which is commonly known as the TRALAD project. So this is a project that was funded by the World Bank, and it is being implemented in 3 provinces, the Luapula province, Muchinga province, and the Northern province. So this project aims, main objective is to improve natural resource management in selected districts to support sustainable livelihoods, and in an event of an eligible crisis, to provide immediate and effective response to that particular eligible crisis and emergency. So this is where we come in as Center for Climate Resilience and Sustainable Development, CRESAD. So I'm going to base my focus on the TRALAD project, because the TRALAD project, like I mentioned, is aiming at improving livelihoods, but we want these livelihoods to be sustainable. We don't want these livelihoods of the people in Zambia to deplete the natural resources. So my team in Luapula province is acting as a technical service provider under this TRALAD project in Luapula province. So we have other colleagues that are implementing it in the other 2 districts that I mentioned. But for Luapula province, it's being implemented across 5 districts. So those districts are Kawambwa, Chelenge, Chifunabuli, Lunga, and Samfya. Okay, so what is this TRALAD about? So Luapula province has got a great biodiversity. We have so many natural lakes, we have rivers, we have national parks, we have waterfalls. But despite this, the livelihoods of the people in Luapula province is still centered around the same livelihood activities. So we've had an instance where most of the natural resources have been depleted because of a continuity. Like we have people in this province doing or practicing the same livelihood activities over and over again. So this has led to climate change, and it has brought about climate impacts such as flooding, the droughts. There's been a low market access due to poor infrastructure and the like. So because the Zambian economy, particularly the rural economy, is very vulnerable to climate change consequences. Adaptation to climate change is one of the country's development objectives. So what we're trying to do as a Center for Climate Resilience and Sustainable Development is to promote community-driven initiative. We want the communities to come on board with their initiatives, and these initiatives should focus on natural resource management, and these activities should be able to be climate change resilient and should also be sustainable for those communities in question. So what are we doing as CRESAD? So CRESAD is currently promoting diversified, resilient, and sustainable livelihoods through the World Bank funded project, which is a Tralad project in Luapula province specifically. So the project is financed by the World Bank and is being implemented by the government of the Republic of Zambia through the Ministry of National Development and Planning. So our role as technical service providers on the Tralad project is to enhance natural resource management through the promotion of the diversified livelihoods that I've mentioned. And our area of operation, like I mentioned earlier, includes Nchelenge, Kawambwa, Chifunawuli, Samfya, and Lunga, respectively. So we want to reach out to as many communities as possible in these 5 districts. We want to help them come up with alternative means of livelihood, and these livelihoods should not deplete the natural resources that are in Luapula province. Okay, so what our work on the Tralad project is as CRESAD. Our work is centered around mobilization, sensitization, and facilitation of sub-project proposal formulation. So under mobilization and sensitization, CRESAD is aiming at creating awareness in these local communities of the 5 districts that I've mentioned on the grant opportunities available on the Tralad project. So this is being done through mobilization. So we go into those fields, we mobilize the communities, we make our presence known by these communities. So we mobilize these communities into producer groups, or what are known as cooperatives, as well as collaborating with the district authorities, traditional authorities, religious groups, and women organizations. In addition, in so doing, we're also conducting what is referred to as a climate risk assessment. So this is aimed at assessing the vulnerability levels of the communities to the impacts of climate change. So this assessment is gender sensitive. So the World Bank is really particular about gender sensitivity. We try by all means to bring more women on board because we want to empower as many women as possible in these communities. So it is being implemented using the gender sensitive climate risk assessment tool. So this tool is one of the requirements that we attach as we are considering a sub-project for funding. So like I mentioned, this tool is aimed at positioning a particular community in a place where it is eligible for funding. We want that particular community to explain to the funding department what it is that is so special about this community that it deserves the funding? How is it vulnerable to the effects of climate change? What measures does that community plan to put in place in the coming future to cut down those effects of climate change? So that's what that too is basically about. Then apart from mobilization and sensitization, CRESAD is also helping in facilitating the formulation of the sub-project proposals by the cooperatives. So these cooperatives formulate, they fill in what are known as project proposals. So we as CRESADs, known as the technical service providers, help in facilitation of this formulation of the project proposals. And as we do this, we take some of the following into consideration. So the proposed project should speak to the project's development objectives, which I mentioned earlier. So the proposed project should not in any way deplete the natural resources. Then the proposed interventions should mitigate the said impacts. So the project that's a cooperative plans to implement should help to mitigate some impacts that they've identified in their communities. Apart from that, the interventions proposed should reduce pressure on natural resources. So we have some natural resources that have been put pressure on in Luapula province. We have people constantly practicing fishing. So we find that even most species of fish in our water bodies have been depleted because of the constant fishing practices that are taking place. So when we empower this community, we don't want it to continue practicing that fishing from the natural bodies. We want it to reduce the pressure that fishing has on the natural resources. So instead of harvesting their fish from the natural resource, that which is the water body, the natural water body, we advise this cooperative to instead put up fish ponds where they can groom their fish, and when it's ready for harvesting, they harvest it and take it to the markets for selling. Then the projects identified should be community driven. So this project, it's a must, this is a requirement by the World Bank that they should be community driven. What do we mean by that? We mean the community should be in the lead. They should play an active role in these projects. We don't want to do these projects for them. They should mobilize them as a community. Then other than that, the interventions should take an integrated approach and promote livelihood diversification. So these interventions should be integrated. We don't want a cooperative just to pick on one intervention to say, no, we're going to rear goats or we're going to rear pigs. We want it to be integrated. We want them to have another intervention apart from goat rearing or apart from pig production. Let them have another intervention. So usually they integrate the livelihood component with a gardening component so that they just have some diversification. Okay, so the project's beneficiaries include individuals from the targeted districts that I've mentioned, and these communities will benefit from agriculture and agroforestry livelihood activities. Then apart from that, the beneficiaries should be cooperative groups, also known as community groups. So these cooperative groups should be registered and they should have licenses of participation. Then apart from that, beneficiaries could also be private firms or enterprises, so that these will facilitate the access to business opportunities for the primary producers according to business development activities. So what is our work on the Twilight project? So we basically also help in the engagement of private entities. So these will help provide value addition and marketing of the produce. So apart from just empowering these communities. We want to take it further to see that these communities have been, they've been linked to markets, to ready markets. We want their produce to be ready for markets. We don't want them to harvest and just end up losing their produce because they can't find any ready available markets. So part of our responsibility as CRESAD on the Triad project is to make sure that our beneficiaries have been linked to possible markets for the producers to sell out. So in so doing, we're currently facilitating the creation of industrial hubs for fish and goat leather products. So these will promote the development of ecotourism in the province at large through production and marketing of locally made products. So we've signed an agreement with a local company that processes goat leather and fish skin. So we've introduced this company, this organization rather, to our communities, and the training will kickstart January 2022, where our communities are going to be on a larger scale, shown how to process this goat leather, how they're going to process the fish skin, and how they can further create different products from that goat skin or the fish skin that they can use to market. So because we noticed Luapula province is blessed with so many natural resources, like I said earlier, there are so many water bodies here. We have so many tourists coming to visit the famous Sanfia beach. But then we've had complaints of tourists saying, no, when we come to Sanfia beach, we don't have anything to look at. We have nothing, no accessory to take back home to say, no, I went to Sanfia beach and I came back either with a shirt, with a necklace, with a handbag. So we want to empower the communities around Sanfia to say they can process their goat leather instead of just discarding it when they want to extract their meat. They can use that goat leather. They can make products such as hats. They can make bracelets. They can make handbags that they can take to Sanfia Beach, and that can help us develop the ecotourism in the province. Then apart from that, CRESAD is also helping in the promotion of the community savings by implementing what is known as the village savings and lending associations. So other than that, it's our objective to develop the culture of savings amongst the cooperatives. So the aim of this is to subsequently sustain the project and to strengthen the human, social, and financial aspects of the most vulnerable communities. So what would these village savings and lending associations do? They'll help, they'll bring about a continuity. We want these cooperatives to develop a habit of saving instead of just depleting all the income, all the profit that they make from these livelihood projects. We want them to develop a habit of saving. So this will improve the economic security, the cash flow management of the members of the beneficiary groups, and it will also improve the resilience to economic shocks. So to this effect, the beneficiaries under these projects will be trained in village savings and lending association methodologies in order for them to create saving groups using the proceeds from the project. So whatever profit they make from the projects, they're going to train these beneficiaries how to use these the village savings so they can save the profit that they make and be able to sustain themselves as a community. Okay, apart from that, we are also involved in climate smart agriculture on the same project. So CRESAD's mandate under this component is to create awareness and sensitization about the project's small grant opportunities, creating linkages on the knowledge gained to the available funding opportunities for promotion of livelihood activities. So what we do is, like I said earlier, we're working with various line ministries. So this climate smart agriculture, we want to enlighten the beneficiaries or even just the farmers in our target district to practice what is referred to as climate smart agriculture, because we believe this practice of climate smart agriculture can also contribute to cutting down the effects of climate change. So by so doing, as we are enlightening these communities about the climate smart agriculture, basically we target the farmers in our target districts. We also create awareness on the Trialad project, because we believe there are some farmers that are sensitized on this climate smart agriculture that are not aware about the ongoing Trialad project. So we come on board as CRESAD to enlighten those farmers that are blank or that are not aware or that are not knowledgeable about the Trialad project. We create awareness, we sensitize them about this Trialad project. What are these small grant opportunities that they are hearing from people? And we also help them to be eligible for the funding. Then we also have what is referred to as the community forest management and the natural forest regeneration. So the role of CRESAD on this subcomponent is to facilitate development of diversified livelihood activities in identified CFM and NFR areas. So like the objective of the Trialad project states, we want to help in promoting livelihood diversification, but also reducing the pressure on the natural resources. So we have people in Wapula province that have established their lives in natural forests. So we want to help these people come up with alternative livelihoods, because what they are doing in those natural forests is basically cutting down the trees and selling or rather preparing charcoal for sale to gain an income. So when we come on board as CRESAD, we want to go in those communities and tell them to say, you stop cutting down the trees. But as you stop cutting down the trees, we are willing to help you come up with an alternative livelihood that is going to provide you with the monies that you need to sustain yourselves. Instead of cutting down the trees, you probably venture into another livelihood component that will not put pressure on those forests. So we want to have a shift of activities from cutting down those trees to finding an alternative livelihood for that particular community. So this is what we are referring to as the natural forest regeneration. Then we also have the community forest management. So we want to identify pieces of land in communities. So we're targeting huge pieces of land in these communities that are willingly going to be used as areas of afforestation. So we want these areas to be used for afforestation, where we're going to plant our indigenous trees and establish forests. Okay, so in conclusion, this afforestation is a major solution that is going to help us tackle the loss of natural forests caused by heavy deforestation over the past few years. So if it is practiced properly throughout the conservation sites, so these projects could be extremely viable and could provide for major commercial needs for people from the forest. So our aim is to ensure sustainable livelihoods in the wake of climate change. So however, besides that, for the economy to be sustainable, it needs a mix of functional laws, a specialized finance sector, a lucrative small and large producer company firms that harness value addition while maintaining natural resource management. Continued efforts are also required, including holistic approaches that incorporate food security, poverty reduction, and mainstreaming. and also to create a win-win sustainable natural resource management system. These approaches should include all interested parties, including various ministries, provincial and district authorities, development organization and non-governmental organization, as well as farmers, organizations, and financial institutions. Thank you so much for your attention. I don't know if we have any questions from the presentation or any parts of the presentation that have not been clearly elaborated that I could go and elaborate further. So questions are welcome.
I have a question.
Okay.
On climate change mitigation, you talked of the government having a role, rather to say. So what role does government has to play concerning climate mitigation? Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so to answer that question, I'll take us back to slide number 13. Or rather, let me start from slide number 13, number 12. So government is putting in so many measures towards mitigating deforestation. So these are some of the projects that are running that government is actively supporting. And we highlighted this particular one on page 13, which is the Trialad project, Transforming Landscapes for Resilience and Development, which is being implemented in 3 provinces, the Northern Province, Wakula Province, and Mchinga Province. So what government is doing basically around this project is that it has engaged into an agreement with the World Bank to fund a project which is aiming at transforming the livelihoods of people into more sustainable means of livelihood. So monies have been made available for these cooperatives or for these communities to mobilize, to come together, think of alternative livelihoods that are not going to put pressure on the existing natural resources, to find means of livelihood. So those are some of the measures that government has put in place to cut down the effects of deforestation. So instead of encouraging people to produce charcoal and go and sell charcoal in the streets, government is offering them an opportunity to think of alternative livelihoods that are going to be natural resource friendly, that are not going to put pressure on existing natural resources. I don't know if I've answered your question.
Okay, Madam Mutamba, we would also like to add over that.
Okay.
Just to answer that question.
The government has created the Ministry of Environment and Green Economy to respond to the environment.
So if we go to what the government has put in place with that ministry in place, there are a lot of activities that have been budgeted for in the 2022 budget. Also in line with the projects that have been highlighted in the presentation, government already started a lot of interventions that are aligned to achieving a green economy. I think most of the times it's because we are not abreast to the information of what really government is trying to implement. So it is also a wake-up call for us that we should, if we're interested in a topic, we should research more on what interventions are being put in place, like by the government itself and other partnering organizations. So that's why in our presentation, we put up different projects that the government is currently implementing. And one of them is the Trialad project, which our government is implementing through funding from the World Bank. I hope that adds on to the response to the question raised.
Oh yeah, thank you so much. It does. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Before you proceed on just I'm having a question on the same thing.
Okay.
Yeah, this is Chileshe Mavola. I just want to ask about the same alternatives that the government would want people to put in place in order for them to be helped. I just want to ask, are they going to be giving loans or they're going to be giving grants to these people? Just a clarity on that, please.
Okay, so to answer your question, so under the Trialad project, what is being given to these communities are grants. So they are not loans, they are grants that are being given to these communities. Is that clear?
All right, thank you very much. I've gotten it.
I have a question. So,
okay.
one businessman said, as long as there's demand, there will be supply. So if you give people, let's say those who produce charcoal, alternatives to do other businesses or venture into other fields of work, what will happen is that someone else will come up and is going to take up the charcoal burning thing. So as long as demand continues in Lusaka, in other major cities, there will still be supply. Supply will still show up. So the question still stands in. The problem is, what are we doing to people who are living in major cities? What is going to happen to them? How are you going to cut down on the demand? Because as long as there's demand, supply will still be there. You take down one, two come in, and then supply keeps on increasing with the prices of electricity and everything else. So what goes on?
Okay, that's a good question. So I'll give that question to
Madam Mutamba, can I help you?
Yes, just over to Sylvia. Yeah, over to you, Sylvia. I was about to hand over the floor to you, actually.
Oh,
so my
okay.
colleague
Thank you very much.
that question, yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't get the name for the person that raised the question, but specifically related to the Trialad project. I know it's something that would benefit the whole nation once implemented on a large scale. I mentioned it in the chat section. We have an assignment at the end of this slide, but basically taking it back to the Trialad project, we are in the process of identifying what we are calling landmark projects. So like you have said, there's always demand for charcoal. So we need to find other substitutes for replacing the charcoal. So one of the activities that we have identified in our communities, starting with Nchelenge, is the development of a biomass charcoal processing plant. So where we are going to be using raw materials such as twigs, such as grass, sawdust, and the like, in order to come up with charcoal briquettes, which substitute the charcoal that is being produced in these communities and being sold out to the larger communities. So if we can have projects that are dotted across the country producing those briquettes, then we increase the demand of the briquettes, substituting the charcoal. We accompany that with the sensitization of the benefits of using the briquettes instead of charcoal in order to promote afforestation and reforestation in order to mitigate climate change in our country.
Thank you.
I hope that is clear.
Okay, that's
yes, I can see what you're talking.
Okay, so in addition to that, we are also trying to brainstorm, like we are looking for new ideas. What other energy sources can we get from these communities using local resources that do not deplete the natural resource, but can be used as an energy substitute at household level, as well as commercial level. So those are the activities that we need. I know this is a youth platform, so we want youth to come up with those innovations. What can we use to substitute the charcoal energy that we use in our household or commercial level and find a more sustainable platform that we can develop and spread to the entire country. I hope that is clear.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it's very, very clear. We're going to have a few more questions here. Kondorani, you can ask, and then Valepi. And yeah, that's going to be it for today. So Kondorani, go ahead and ask your question.
In fact, it's just a contribution.
Okay.
Hello?
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons why there's much demand on afforestation is that a lot of people, they do cut trees for the using of wood. So one of the reasons, one of the ways or measures we're supposed to be put in place in order to reduce such activities is putting up plants such as solar. I don't know if I can say solar plants, whereby people can be using solar, maybe electricity that can be used for lighting, cooking. Even we should also extend the hydroelectric in order to reduce the use of water. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to have Valepi, you can ask your question. Valepi. Okay, so Valepi says, I'm concerned over the issue of planting only indigenous trees. How about we try to do a mixture? So Mrs. Mutamba, what are some of your thoughts on that?
Okay, so clearly, yes, we can advise you to plant those under your project. It's a requirement that on a personal level, it's to come up with a plantation. You can planting of the indigenous trees. Does that answer your question?
Okay, it was
Yes.
Valepi.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
My question.
Valepi, you had something to say? You can repeat that.
Like, okay, quite all right. It answers my question. I was just looking at it, the view that indigenous trees really take a very long time for them to grow and mature, whereas the exotic ones like grow faster. So I was thinking, if we really want better results, which are going to be very effective, how about we do it to be a mixture? Because when it becomes like that, we're going to have these ones at this stage, whereas the other ones are going to be following through. And this is going to create a cycle in which our forests are going to be growing at a very good pace. So that was my line of thought. So I don't really know.
Hi,
Okay.
sorry, could we just add, Madam Mutamba, if we allowed?
Yes, sure.
Okay. So those we say we want indigenous trees, because exotic trees, if you studied very well, you would find that even natural resources such as birds, they wouldn't lay eggs in them. Okay, so we want sustainability of those other natural resources which are around, so that they support the ecosystem very well. So we encourage the exotic trees instead of we encourage the indigenous trees instead of the exotic trees. And then the exotic trees, usually they are just for business, huh? after a while, you have to cut them down and then use them. They are not sustainable. Okay, so we encourage indigenous trees so that there's sustainability of the ecosystem.
And also, just in addition to the indigenous trees, we have various indigenous trees that play a very critical role in the ecosystem. So we have some that attract a greater amount of water and the like. So we have things like the exotic trees, like the pine. It draws a lot of water to it and it depletes the water. But then if you have indigenous trees such as the masuku tree and the like, so we have a lot of benefits from the indigenous, unlike the exotic trees. Like my colleague Marine had earlier indicated, the exotic trees, we like for the pine or the eucalyptus, you cut it down for the timber and then that's it. Then you have to grow another tree. But imagine you have an indigenous tree that not only promotes increase in the water table, but also provides fruit to the indigenous people. So you have a double gain
and a shelter
for enhancing natural resource management, meaning will enhance natural wildlife as well. So we have a lot of facets that are promoted by indigenous trees, unlike the exotic trees. That's why they are recommended. I hope that helps to clarify your intuition.
Okay, thank you very much for that response. Thank you for the question as well, Valerie. And so before we come to the end of our program, our friends at CRESA, you did mention that you have a project, or not a project, but an assignment. Can you just talk to us a bit about that?
Assignment. Okay, so I'll take you to the last slide where the assignment is. So maybe you can just quickly, if you're able to copy it down. So I would want to learn from you people, what activities or projects do you think that these local communities can engage in order to mitigate the impacts of climate change? So you can help us brainstorm. Then other than that, what do you think is the best method to reach out to communities on climate change and its effects?
Okay.
So, Mr. Walia, I don't know how you do it. Is this a take-home assignment or?
Yes. So
looking
this,
at the time that you have.
I think this would be a take-home assignment. Our participants are going to draft something and then they are going to send it. I'm going to send them as well to you. Maybe you might find someone who you can work with for the project as well through their ideas, right?
Sorry, please. Sorry, can you just slide it to the left of your screen so that we get a clear view?
Okay, don't worry about that. I think that you're going to share the presentation.
Okay, what I'll
right?
do is, yes,
Okay.
I will share
right.
the presentation to Mr. Walia.
All right, thank you.
All right, yeah.
Okay, sorry, just on the assignment as well. The first question, we are trying to get different projects that we can adopt on the Triad project. As we indicated earlier, we are engaging communities to identify sustainable livelihood activities. So who knows, whatever activity you're going to implement, if we deem it as sustainable, it might just be a project that a community will implement to enhance sustainability here in Wapula province. So we need those good ideas coming. You can put forth good business ideas that can be implemented in the local community. That's what we are trying to focus on.
Okay then. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the assignment. We're going to communicate more in the group on this. The last question that I would just want you to clear out is how can people learn more about what CRESAD is doing? How can they learn more about the projects you're running? And also, do you have plans to extend to other parts of the country, since you say that the organization is based in Wapula.
For the interest of time, I think there are 3 numbers which have been put on the chat, so you can still call us, and then we can have extra chats. And then we were also added on the group, so we should be able to chat the way forward.
Okay.
I think that would help.
That's perfect.
You're
That's
welcome
perfect.
to reach out to any of us anytime. So you can reach out to the 3 numbers that my colleague has talked about that have been shared in your chat. So you can reach out to us, and we'll be ready to answer any of your questions and concerns regarding CRESAD, what we are about, what we are doing, and all the other questions. We'll be willingly available to respond to you.
Okay. So with that said and done, I want to say thank you so much to our officials from CRESAD. I saw we had actually, I thought we would have 1, but we had, I think, about 4. We had, I think, Joy, Mukupa, Marine, we had Sylvia, and as well as Mrs. Mutamba. So thank you so much for joining. And I'm sure you could see from the engagement that the majority of the people with us are actually students in environmental courses or climate courses. And so I think you're definitely going to have some great ideas from them. Otherwise, thank you so much to CRESAD for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
You are
for
most
having
welcome.
Thank you. Amazing. So CRESAD is going to be with us in the group for some time. And so for the assignments, for the questions, you'll be able to reach out to them there. And with that said and done, we've come to the end of our program today. Just a few announcements is that the assignments are due. And remember, we're going to have a graduation and the certification day at the end of this training. And the assignments are a requirement for you to be part of those that actually graduate. Next week, we're going to be looking at climate change mitigation on an international scale. We're going to look at some of the organizations on the international scale that deal with climate change, some of the projected scenarios in terms of what has to be done, and some of the projected scenarios for climate change and all of that stuff. And we might also have a guest presenter that day, and we're going to communicate all of that in the group. But for today, thank you so much. Once more to CRESAD, thank you so much to the participants. We'll continue chatting in the group for whatever you might want to ask. For today, I think that's it. Good evening or good night.
Good night and bye-bye. Thanks.
Good night. Thank you.
Okay, good night.